Good morning. Good morning. There is one, this is going to be a short video just reflecting on what you've been learning in your slides in the PowerPoint. First thing we want to really remember is the region of the world where humanity begins to build these huge civilizations along rivers in what we call the Fertile Crescent. The Fertile Crescent is a boomerang shaped area in the Middle East where there was a body of water to the south and mountains to the north, but the valleys in between provided very fertile land along rivers for these civilizations to grow and thrive. Fertile Crescent, in from ancient times, is where the wheel was developed, agriculture was developed, irrigation, so many great things that became a part of civilizations around the world. If we look at the map from the west to the east, we'll start with the civilization that you're going to be responsible for knowing. The first one is going to be Egypt. Egypt, we've already talked about so many of the things that were developed there. We'll continue to look at these civilizations, but Egypt, we discussed, was the one thing we know about it was that it was an early example of a theocracy where the religion and the government were one, since the ruler believed himself to be a god and the people believed he was a god. Egypt was the first river valley civilization that we discuss. Mesopotamia will be the second one. Mesopotamia, a long history of bringing so many things, and we'll look at Mesopotamia on its own. For right now, one of the things we can say about it is that the very first written legal code came from the king of Mesopotamia, Hammurabi, about 5,000 years ago, about 3,000 BCE. Hammurabi wrote the legal code that you're reading about in today's lesson. So if we continue traveling east along the Fertile Crescent, we see that the Indus River Valley in India was another major civilization with so many innovations that happened in India. And following along east to the fourth major river valley civilization, we get to China. So we have Egypt, Mesopotamia, India, and China. And you will excuse my use of the acronym Eat More Ice Cream: Egypt, Mesopotamia, India, China. Remember that from west to east, those are the four major river valley civilizations. As I said, we'll discuss more about that later. For now, I want to introduce a term to you that you never want to forget when you're studying the history of the world. Okay. The term is cultural diffusion. Now, there's a lot to unpack there. Culture are all of those ideas and practices that we are given just because we're born. For example, the language we speak is not something we chose, but we're born into speaking a certain language. It's part of our culture. Same thing with what we eat, our diet. Not something we choose. We eat the food that our culture approves and that our culture suggests, recommends, that our culture makes available. Holidays, so many cultural practices in terms of how we organize families, our religion. Again, not one that we would choose. If we lived in India, most likely our religion would be Hindu, or if we lived in Pakistan across the border from India, our religion would probably be Islam. And so we see that all these are cultural ideas, things that we inherit, just like breathing the air. Now, diffusion is a term that we're familiar with from science, how a substance can move through a border um, and can diffuse through a border and end up somewhere else. And so, for something to be diffused means that it's transmitted from one place to another. Cultural diffusion is the sharing of ideas, technologies, all kinds of all kinds of culture, religions, ideas, learning, in ways of dress, ways of eating. All these aspects of culture are diffused from one civilization to another. This occurred absolutely in the Fertile Crescent between Egypt, Mesopotamia, India, and China, those early river valley civilizations that we talked about. If one culture developed this idea, soon along that Fertile Crescent, those ideas were being shared in other cultures. We can see numerous examples of cultural diffusion in our own culture. Why can I go eat a taco in Arkansas? Well, cultural diffusion, right? Why are there Buddhists living in New York City? Cultural diffusion. So if you are taking world history class and you're asked a question and cultural diffusion is one of the answers, you got to really think about it. Okay. Think about architecture. Okay. Think about the presence of a certain kind of a dome or the certain kind of a crucifix or some kind of a symbol in religion, or if you see something that is an idea in one place and then you see it in an entirely different culture, you realize that that idea or that practice, that way of doing things, has been diffused from one culture to the next. So you're never going to get away from the idea of cultural diffusion in world history. And I want you to let your brain always get there. Okay. That idea, the cultural ideas are diffused from one civilization to another. Thank you very much.